Tyler Perry was never expected to steal the spotlight that night. As millions tuned in to the 25th BET Awards, they were ready for the usual sparkle, dramatic outfits, and maybe a meme or two. But nobody saw it coming. Perry, known as Hollywood's calm powerhouse and a steady supporter of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, suddenly took the stage and unleashed what felt like a live tell-all. His words weren't delivered with anger, but the meaning behind them cut straight through Meghan's carefully built reputation. Let's go back for a moment. When Harry and Meghan broke away from the royal family in 2020, Perry was the one who stepped up when everyone else disappeared. He handed them the keys to his $18 million Beverly Hills mansion, paid for their security, took care of their bills, and basically gave them a safe place to land in America. At the time, it looked like a heartfelt gesture from someone who understood the struggles of fame and being in the public eye. But what nobody saw behind closed doors was how that friendship quietly shifted into a one-way street. Perry later revealed he felt emotionally and financially drained by the whole thing. That's exactly what made his speech at the BET Awards such a jaw-dropper. Perry never said Meghan's name, but he didn't have to. He shared a story about welcoming someone into his home, offering his help and kindness, only to be completely ignored once they got everything they wanted. Some folks borrow blessings like they're owed, but never return the favor, he said. The cameras didn't zoom in on anyone, but anyone who knew the real story could guess exactly who he was talking about. For years, Perry had reportedly kept his feelings hidden behind closed doors. But this time, something finally gave way. Insiders say it all started when Meghan asked to use Perry's private jet, a simple favor, as she put it, without any talk of planning or cost. When Perry said no, not because he couldn't pay for it, but because he felt taken advantage of, Meghan allegedly got upset. That, Perry later confided to insiders, was the final straw. What began as a kind favor among friends had become a habit of entitlement, and Perry wasn't alone. Multiple sources say his own staff, colleagues, and even producers had quietly started warning him about the situation. Meghan isn't known for repaying favors. She collects them like trophies, only to drop people once they're no longer useful to her story. At first, Perry brushed off the rumors. He truly thought he was helping two people who needed a fresh start. But as time went on, with big Netflix and Spotify deals coming their way, the millions rolling in, and not a single thank you given, it became obvious there was never any intention to give back. When Perry grabbed the mic that night, he wasn't just sharing a personal memory. He was making a bold declaration. Even the most generous people have limits, and when those limits are reached, silence turns into a roar. Meghan had carefully crafted her image as the misunderstood woman, silenced by royalty. But Perry was not the crown. He wasn't a tabloid writer. He was the friend who would welcome them in with no conditions, and now he was putting it all out in the open. Suddenly, everyone inside the awards hall and watching online got a glimpse of a different fairy tale, where the hero becomes the truth teller and Hollywood's famously nice guy finally puts his foot down. What made the moment land with such force was the timing. Meghan and Harry had just started shopping a brand new documentary about power and freedom. But right after Perry's speech, investors started to disappear. The trust was shattered. The glossy image Meghan built started to fall apart, and in the blink of an eye, she lost her last real ally. The fallout came fast and fierce. Hollywood, famous for its secret deals and mutual favors, rarely gets involved in public scandals. But Tyler Perry is no ordinary figure. He owns his own studio, is respected for his business mind and quiet dignity, and when someone like him throws public shade, especially at someone he once protected, the shockwaves are huge. By the next morning, the phones were buzzing. One producer, who had been working on Meghan and Harry's latest Netflix pitch, pulled out just hours after the BET Awards aired. Another investor, who'd already attended 2 planning meetings for the documentary, simply said, "I don't want to be involved in something that feels this toxic." This wasn't just about the story, it was about who was telling it. Meghan's name, which once made companies eager to look progressive and inclusive, suddenly looked like trouble. Over at Archewell, Meghan's PR team scrambled to pick up the pieces. They called every big media outlet, trying desperately to spin the story. Their plan? Make Perry look bitter and out of touch, someone who just didn't get Meghan's motives. They dangled exclusive interviews, promised secret behind-the-scenes clips, and even hinted at a tell-all podcast to clap back. Journalists didn't want any part of it. They're OPs and all. But nothing worked. If anything, Meghan's PR blitz only made things worse. It practically screamed desperation. The more they tried to spin the story, the more people began to wonder what they were really hiding. Behind closed doors, the chaos was even bigger. Friends close to Perry revealed he never wanted to go public, but after years of feeling emotionally cornered, he felt he had no other choice. He'd spent months quietly wrestling with the idea of speaking out, but it wasn't just the private jet incident or some business pitch with no real plan that pushed him over the edge. It was the moment he realized Meghan wasn't just ungrateful, she was actually using their friendship as a tool to boost her own influence. One person close to Perry's team revealed, Meghan tried to leverage his name to gain access to a funding circle in early 2024. She even mentioned his support in a pitch meeting, hinting he was a silent backer for her latest media venture, all without his permission. When Perry found out, he was furious. That was the breaking point. He decided to go public, not to stir up drama, but to protect his own name from being dragged into Meghan's plans. And as soon as he stepped forward, others started coming out of the shadows too. A former assistant from Meghan's camp described the work environment as completely draining. They said Meghan controlled every detail, demanded endless loyalty, and made sure anyone who dared question her paid the price. A producer from their failed Spotify deal claimed Meghan's quest for perfection crushed every good idea. She didn't want partners, they said. She wanted yes men. Even Oprah's famous circle, which was once thought to be close with Meghan, began slowly backing away. Insiders whisper that there hadn't been any friendly calls between the two camps for months, and after Perry's speech set the internet ablaze, Oprah's team stayed completely silent. No support, no comment, nothing but distance. The dominoes kept falling. Meghan had worked hard to be seen as a champion for women and a symbol of independence, but now, that carefully built image was being torn down by the very people who once stood by her side. For a lot of people, it felt like the mask had finally come off. And this time, the stories weren't coming from gossip magazines, they were coming from people who knew her, worked with her, and in Perry's case, had even given her a home. As days passed, Perry's explosive words triggered a cultural shift. Suddenly, Meghan Markle wasn't seen as untouchable anymore, and the fallout didn't just hurt her reputation, it started to hit her finances. Netflix was reportedly rethinking its partnership, investors were backing away, and Arkwell's future looked more uncertain than ever. Sources close to the charity said several projects were already on pause, job offers were put on ice, budgets were now under weekly review. What was once a thriving, celebrity-powered brand had turned into a business surrounded by worry, hesitation, and non-stop damage control. Public trust was unraveling right before everyone's eyes. For years, Meghan had crafted the image of a misunderstood woman struggling under royal pressure, a symbol of empowerment, the brave underdog standing up to the monarchy. But now, with insiders revealing stories of emotional manipulation, endless demands, and carefully chosen loyalty, the public started to wonder how much of her story was ever genuine. Social media, once divided over her, suddenly turned cold. Hashtags that used to support her became battlegrounds for criticism, memes, and side-by-side posts casting her as entitled and fake. For Meghan, who spent years managing every detail of her public image, this wasn't just a rough headline, it was a full-blown identity crisis. The stories she built her brand on, feminist leader, victim of royal cruelty, self-made media powerhouse, were now under the microscope, questioned by everyone, live and in real time. Even her longtime supporters fell silent. Media outlets that used to rush out glowing features were pulling back, afraid to get caught in the fallout of a sinking brand. Nobody wanted to be tied to a reputation collapsing this quickly. Behind closed doors, sources say Meghan went into a tailspin. She sent angry texts to Perry after his BET speech, accusing him of betrayal, humiliation, and damaging her family's legacy. But Perry didn't answer. Not then, not ever. He was finished. And that silence spoke louder than any public statement. Friends close to Perry confirmed he'd been emotionally cornered for years, always pushed to give more, stay quiet, and be endlessly loyal to someone who saw loyalty as just another transaction. More people started to speak out. A top publicist revealed that Meghan's team had tried to blacklist journalists simply for asking unscripted questions. A former Arkwell consultant shared that Meghan often brushed off strategic advice. If it didn't fit her story, it was ignored. Another former staff member bluntly described the workplace as where gratitude went to die. These stories were damning, not because they were wild, but because they all matched the same pattern: control, manipulation, and emotional pressure. Even in Hollywood, where neutrality is the rule, studio executives started to speak up. Some whispered about how difficult Meghan was to work with, while others joked that working with her team was like playing chess with a mirror. Nothing ever reflected back to Karj. It was all about spin all the time. Then the numbers hit. A recent poll showed support for the Sussexes in the US had dropped by over 30% in just a year. In the UK, they were already seen as outsiders by many, and now the fallout had gone global. Sponsors were stepping back, potential partners were vanishing, and Meghan's once rising empire had turned into a cautionary tale. Meanwhile, Harry stayed mostly silent. Some say he's working behind the scenes to save what's left of their image. Others think he's just worn out, tired from endless media fights, family troubles, and now watching their closest allies walk away. Tyler Perry's speech wasn't loud or filled with anger. It didn't need to be. It was calm, direct, and sharp, almost surgical. That's what made it so powerful. It didn't just reveal a single incident, it exposed an entire pattern. And in Hollywood, where reputation means everything, Meghan Markle learned a harsh lesson: royalty can be cast out twice, once from the crown and now from the very culture she tried to conquer. But the consequences didn't stop there. The shockwaves from Harry's speech kept rolling through Hollywood and beyond. Suddenly, doors that had always swung open for Meghan and Harry were shutting, some gently, others with a bang. Industry insiders whispered about canceled meetings and vanishing invitations. More than one major event planner quietly removed Meghan's name from their guest lists, afraid of unwanted attention or awkward encounters. Paparazzi, who once swarmed for even a glimpse of the couple, now camped outside Perry's studio hoping for a statement or a new headline. Media analysts debated on morning shows about whether the Markle sparkle had finally fizzled out for good. Meanwhile, Meghan's team scrambled to repair the damage, but every new move seemed to backfire. Even brands she'd worked with in the past issued vague statements about re-evaluating their partnerships. For the first time since stepping onto the world stage, Meghan Markle found herself not just fighting for her reputation, but for her place in the story. And this time, nobody was rushing to save her.